Can you hear that wind? Is that too loud?
I can't hear it. You
Okay.
gotta tell me about this shirt you're wearing. This shirt looks like you look like the background of a SpongeBob episode.
Yeah. Okay. So have you seen Chip and Dale?
I don't think so. You mean like the Disney?
Yeah.
characters?
The Disney characters. Yeah. So this is from Chip and Dale. This is the Dale shirt. Yeah. And
Wow.
I can't remember who got it for me. Maybe my mom got it for me for Christmas. When I was little, I had one that she sewed me. And so I would run around in it. And then I was like, man, I need another shirt like that. And so she found this online. And this one's got the chest hair, you see?
Hmm.
And I forgot I had it. And I just saw it in the closet when I was looking for some clothes. And so here, hold on one second. I'm gonna take my headphone out because there's a part on the back too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
This is a rare artifact, this shirt. This is a collector's item.
I know. And I actually have that. You've probably seen it, the leather fedora too. So like I have the whole
Yes.
get up now. I just need like the brown leather jacket or something to go with it. So
That's pretty wild. I never saw those movies.
well, it was a TV show. I don't know. They might have
Really?
done a movie. Yeah, I used to watch it when I was little. It was like like Darkwing Duck, all those shows that would come on Disney. It was like one of those, but it was older.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah.
That's incredible, man.
Should
I really like that.
did you want me to I didn't send an invite to Mitch yet. Should I do that?
Sure.
We'll see if he comes. I don't know if he well now you can't say no, I guess, because I asked you after I was recording. Didn't think about that. What's his email again? Oh crud. Do you know it offhand?
I don't.
Oh no, because I don't have a man, that stinks. Oh well. Yeah, because I don't have his my phone's not working right now, so it's doing some update or something. Oy.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of it.
Mm.
I just sent man, that's a bummer. Well, I'm not pretending, Mitch. I really can't remember your thing. I put in M, but I'm assuming it's maybe it's caps something. No, I don't know. Well, if you remember it, let me know. But
Okay, I don't think I ever knew it.
man, I wish I could like check my phone. I don't even know how to do that.
Mm.
I don't know. Who knows what it is? Well, sorry, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't spend too much. I have a question for you though. I saw this at Walmart. I was gonna ask you how you feel about it.
Fruity Pebbles, is this syrup?
Yeah, it's a syrup. I haven't
Holy
tried
cow.
it yet. What's your first impression?
That looks insane.
Yeah, it does. It does. It might be insane. I don't know.
It looks like the Mrs. Butterworth's style syrup. Is it a collaboration?
Yeah, it is, I think. I'm pretty sure that's her on there. I don't know. Yeah, Mrs. Buttersworth, it says on the front.
That's
I have
so
no
freaky.
Yeah, it looks pretty. It looks like medicine to me, but I don't know. It could be good.
Fruity Pebble pancakes.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought of that. So what have you been up to, man?
What can I say? It snowed here in Waco. We had this ice storm, and so everything shut down.
Oh man.
Last year we had a similar ice storm, and I went to go chip out my car, like frost off the ice, and it wasn't frost as much as it was just encased in ice. There's a handle on the door. I couldn't even get my hand in the handle to open it. It was just solid ice.
That's terrible.
So anyway, that's going on. It's pretty fun.
That's crazy. I didn't know it got that. Well, I mean, I figured it got cold sometimes, but I wouldn't have expected like a snowstorm there.
It's rare. Yeah.
You look pretty bundled up. Looks nice.
I am bundled up, man.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. This Phantastes. Let me talk to you about Phantastes
Okay.
for just a second.
Yeah. Let's do this.
I would love to get our cards together and just walk through it one chapter at a time or something like that. Would you be up for it?
I would definitely be up for it. I've been waiting so long for like somebody to talk to this book about. Although I say that, but really, like I read it for the first time last year, but I think I've read it 4 times through last year because I would
Yeah.
just, it was just like, I don't know, there's something extremely comforting and like warm about the book, to me at least. So I would just like keep
Mm,
going back to it. But yeah, I would love so much to go through it, uh,
I'd
chapter
love
by
to do
chapter,
that.
whatever. Yeah,
I've
it's
probably, go ahead.
sorry, no. What are your impressions? What are your thoughts so far?
Well, I'm not completely through it. I've probably got 2 hours of reading left, and I'm getting close to the end. But
That's fast.
there's a lot of similarities to a lot of other things that we talked about, and other things I feel like we're both interested, and it feels like the connection with Carl Jung and Ion, and his uh, elements of the unconscious would be really interesting. There's interesting connections to other, fantasy stories.
Yeah,
It sounds like there's some interesting connections to C.S. Lewis as well, which I didn't realize until I was talking to a friend about George MacDonald.
yeah. Supposedly, I think C.S. Lewis said that he was that's one of his like greatest inspirations or something like that. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think there might be a foreword in that book. I can't remember where
Hmm.
C.S. Lewis talks about it, and I think he says something like the book. I think he says specifically the book Phantastes baptized his imagination or something like that.
That's juicy.
Yeah, it is.
Very
It's like
quotable.
yeah, yeah. But it does that though. It's I love like what it's called a fairy romance or something like that. And I think on my copy it says that on the front and says Phantastes a fairy romance. And I was telling Natalie, I was saying that um, it's not really like I don't know, it's not necessarily like it's not a love story with a fairy. It's just a book I think designed to make you fall in love with the land of fairy because he's kind of walking
Hmm.
through the land of fairy basically. Because there's not,
Hmm.
I mean, what there, I think there is a part I think in the beginning with fairies, but other than that, I don't know that they're not like prominent throughout the story. But
Hmm. I wonder what you think. On that note, I wonder what you think of how in this story they bring in these characters from the King Arthur mythology.
oh, yeah, what is his name that's in it? Sir, is it Sir Gal? It's not Sir Galahad, is it? Is it Galahad?
Percival.
Percival. Okay, yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. I love that. I love that he does that though, because I was listening to I may have told you this King Arthur stories a while back. Just on I found some on randomly on like the Apple podcast, and they kind
Hmm.
of have this weird. They almost have kind of a weird fairy tale feel in a lot of them too.
Hmm.
Did you see the Green Knight?
No, I didn't.
You should check that one out. That one's it's very strange, and it does feel that one I thought felt like a fairy tale when I was watching it,
Hmm.
like just a like you would read in a book or something, or someone would because there's this weird in the Green Knight, there's like these weird threads, and I need to watch it again because I remember thinking about it afterwards, and I was like, man, I don't know what to make of that film because um there's one part with a sash that he like gets from his mother, then this some guy steals it from him. Basically he and then I don't know, there's just this weird thread, and the sash like ends up somewhere else, and so and you're like, how
Hmm.
does like what's going on with this thing? I don't know, but there's these
Hmm.
weird threads that run through it, and it has this fairy tale vibe, sort of.
Hmm. It does. It's weird that he would make his own mythology, his own universe, and then he would link it to something deeper, something older.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
it's
why reference something else instead of just making your own version?
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird too. I need to reread it again because I listened to Pageau and some other guy talk about. I think it was is it Percival? Is that how you say it? Parsival or
Yes. Yeah. Well, now you're making me second guess if I told you that Percival is correct, because we had a discussion where I think you were just about to say that talk was about Sir Percival, I believe, because
the
he didn't know his own name.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Right? Is
something
that
like
what you're talking about?
yeah, and he ends up
Yeah.
like
Keep going.
I think he finds the Holy Grail at the end or something, or he's looking for the Holy Grail, and I think it ends it with your. It doesn't specifically say that he finds the Holy Grail, but he kind of comes to this character development where it leaves you thinking, yeah, he found it. So I wonder if George MacDonald, knowing that story, was kind of weaving that in to his own story, his own, how, like, kind of weaving in how that story of Sir Perceval had impacted him personally. And he's like saying how he's on this journey through the woods, through the land of fairy, and this story of Sir Perceval is there to kind of keep him going and help him along. I have no idea. I just wonder if that's maybe what he did. I don't know. I'm gonna go grab. Do you care for 1 second? I'm gonna grab my book, Phantastes. It should just be like right in the door.
Do it. I'm gonna do a little cross reference while you're gone. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. All right. Sorry about that. You there?
No problem. I'm here.
All right. Yeah.
And you're faster than I was, because I was really interested in knowing who it was that Pageau had the discussion with about whether or not Sir Perceval found the cross or the grail.
Yeah, it's the guy, he was doing the I think it was called Universal History or something. He was doing a series with this guy, and I think that's the last one they've done together. And almost it was probably one of the best videos I think I've seen, because the Pageau actually didn't even talk that much, so he didn't go off in that, it's like,
yes,
where he confuses you. But it was the other guy basically kind of, yeah, he just kind of went through and gave the whole story and told the whole story, and just, I don't know, it was just really nice to just sit back and listen to a story for once.
Okay. Yeah. So Richard Rowland, this is good. You know what really struck me about this conversation? So Richard Rowland is really convinced that these King Arthur stories are a lost kind of, it's our native language for talking about mythology. When I say our, I mean like the West. He thinks that Western people have this lost native tongue in the King Arthur stories, and we're disconnected from them. And that they're actually, this Grail story was he thinks that this Grail story was a dramatic retelling of the Orthodox liturgy. Am I remembering that correctly? Was that your impression?
It seemed that way. Yeah.
Okay. It makes you wonder, did that have anything to do with George MacDonald's motivation for invoking these characters in his story? I don't know that he had any kind of Christian association, did he?
George MacDonald?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a Christian.
Was he really?
Yeah, I didn't know that at first. I thought he was just a fairy tale writer or something, or
just a fairy lover.
Yeah, fantasy writer. But then the more I've looked into it, he is a Christian, or he was, yeah. And he actually has a book, and I haven't read any of it. Like, I've only read his fantasy work so far, but the lady I was telling you about that I wanted to talk to, Shari, hopefully I'll get a chance to speak to her soon, but she's quotes George MacDonald all the time, and I didn't even know, because she's on that Discord server, and I hadn't really, like, last year I was hardly on there, and that's when I discovered, or George, when this other guy on the Discord server said you should read George MacDonald, and then I was like, okay, and then I didn't spend much time on there, but she quotes him all the time, and she's actually read George MacDonald's book. It's like, I think, a 3-part book, and it's Unspoken Sermons. So I don't think he ever preached or anything, but he wrote down, but it's the little bit that you can actually find it on Apple Podcasts, because it's like so old, I guess it's in public domain, so that people read the audio version. But I've listened to, I think, at least the first 3, and I can't remember all of them. I remember the first one, I think, is about childlikeness. And it's really interesting because he'll say stuff where I kind of came to that conclusion, like, on my own, through just reading the Bible, like, over and over and over, because that's mostly all I read. And maybe he puts it in here and you just pick up on it in little bits, I don't know. But that that kind of, I think the first one is about childlikeness, and it's kind of about that's where God kind of wants to get you. It's a fox and the hound idea, like that's they I've kind of, I think I mentioned that to you before. It's kind of, they're in the garden, like the Garden of Eden is like kind of a garden of innocence or childlikeness. But George MacDonald, one thing I love that he does, and he might actually say it in Phantastes, and maybe that's where I started to pick up on it, but he makes this, it's this one line, he says something about it was right for man to be discontent with the childish, but he needs to desire childlikeness or something like that. Like he makes a distinction between being childish and being childlike. And I was like, that I feel like that's a really important distinction that we often lose sight of or something. But yeah, so all of that to say, he was definitely a Christian, but I don't know what his theology was because I've never read his sermons. So but,
this, you mentioned Fox and the Hound, how, and you connected it to childlikeness, but say more about that.
Okay, so I'll try to run through that movie. Sometimes I'll just think about it, I'm like, man, it almost makes me cry because it starts out and you have this two, I mean, I think we've talked about this a little bit, the two, you have a dog and a fox, and so they're not supposed to be together at all, but they're just children, so they just don't. Are you there? I think it froze for a second. Okay, they basically are.
Yeah.
They're childish, but they're also childlike, so they see each other innocently. So there's this blamelessness, this kind of ultimate mercy that's going on. Like they don't judge each other. There's no knowledge of good and evil. Like they haven't ate of that fruit yet. They're in the garden and they're just, everything's innocent. They haven't exalted themselves to a judge position. And then so then when they do that, there's that, are you there? It said my internet. Okay. It said it was unstable for a second. So anyway, I might have to go inside anyway. I don't know if it's starting to rain. But so anyway, they get to a point and there's like a conflict. And so there's this bitterness that developed and they start to see each other differently, but they also start to kind of condemn each other. He's like, you're in the wrong sort of thing. The dog sees the fox as being run. So he starts hunting him. Anyway, you go through the whole story, you get to the end, and then it's this transcendent death, the bear. Okay, yeah, I'm going in. Sorry. Starting to rain again. I thought it was done. Anyway, so the bear is kind of like this transcendent death that comes down from the mountain, when it comes to attack him finally. And so then when it's that fear of death comes down, then that's when the fox puts his life on the line to save the dog. And that's when the forgiveness comes back in, and it's that looming death that makes, I don't know, that makes them like acknowledge, like puts their petty differences aside. And so they, and so then they kind of get back, it's that forgiveness that gets them back to this place of innocence and back to the garden. And then the hunter, goes to shoot the fox, and the dog steps in front to put his life on the line too. So it's like then it's the forgiveness that reconnects them. It's hard for me because I'm like, the more I read the scriptures, the more that just gets emphasized to me, and I don't know if I'm like being biased or like seeing with one eye. Does that make sense? If I'm just blind, if I'm putting too much of an emphasis on mercy, and I'm like, and I'm not putting enough emphasis on truth or something. And so I struggle with that. Sorry, go ahead.
Are you talking specifically about the thing where someone will take the place of somebody else?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, the laying down your life, but then this hold on one second. I'm just gonna make sure I got the rest of my stuff really quick. Sorry.
Yes.
I think that should be all. I got to bring in. Oh. I can leave my drink out there and stuff. Yeah, sorry. So, yeah, I just it's the sorry. What was the question you asked? The taking someone's place in forgiveness.
It's the substitution thing. Are we talking specifically about the substitution?
I think so. I think it can be.
Like, hmm.
Is that what forgiveness is? I feel like it is.
The way you're describing it, there's a self-sacrifice element where somebody is sacrificing themselves for another in both of those situations.
Yeah, which I think,
Friendship.
which I think that's forgiveness in big ways and in small ways.
That's
that
interesting. I want to hear more because I wouldn't have called it forgiveness.
Well, because like there's this weird part in the scripture where Jesus, he's the guy, it's like a lame man and he's paralyzed and he can't walk, and Jesus says, and it's really interesting because he doesn't say son of God, like he's saying son of man the whole time. And he says, so that you may know that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins, I say to you. Because at first he goes to the guy, sorry, and he says, son, your sins are forgiven you. And then everybody's like freaking out and they're like, how can Jesus forgive sins? How can a man forgive sins? And he says, so that you may know that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins, I say to you, rise, take up your bed and walk. And then the guy gets up and walks. And then, so they're all amazed. And I think it even says that, it says, they're amazed that God has given this power to men. Like it doesn't say to Jesus, it said God has given the power of forgiveness to men. And Jesus makes these other statements, whoever you forgive, I forgive, sort of things, like we're the mediator with forgiveness. It's in the ball's in our court, sort of thing. But anyways, he makes this statement afterwards and he says, go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. And the weirdest thing to me is I'm like, mercy is a sacrifice. And that's what, like, it's a I think I've mentioned this to you before, though. It's a sacrifice of yourself in a way. It is like, it's taking someone else's sins upon you because you're willing, when they wrong you, you're willing to say, I'm going to take that blow to my own heart and die, kind of take your place in a way. And so that's why I'm like, is it kind of the same thing in small ways and in large ways? I feel like it is, but I could be making a stretch here. I don't know.
As in, if you as a human want to please God, let's call it, if you want to please God, don't make a sacrifice to God, sacrifice yourself by showing mercy to someone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I see how it's related. I see how it's related. I struggle to make it completely because mercy, when we're talking about mercy, it has a connotation where if you're in a position to deliver mercy, it's because you're also in a position to deliver judgment.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so.
In The Fox and the Hound, for example, let's say the hunter's about to shoot the fox and the dog steps in. It's not as if there's the hunter is about to deliver the judgment, and it's not as if the dog is the one who is delivering the judgment. It's like they intercept the judgment.
Yeah, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so the hunter in that moment, the hunter's the angry god in a way, and is that what you're saying? And the dog is the mediator between God and the fox.
I mean, mercy. It feels like mercy would be if the hunter chose not to shoot the fox. That would be mercy. But it feels like there's something going on where someone willingly sacrifices themselves and takes the judgment that someone else was going to receive. Although they're wicked close, but it feels like there's a subtle difference.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. So
the substitution feels like there's a third party, because in both the Fox and the Hound stories, you have three parties. You have fox, dog, bear, and fox, dog, hunter.
Fox, dog, bear, fox, dog, hunter. I'm trying to keep up here. All right. Yeah. There's a three. You have the wrath from heaven kind of thing in all scenarios. The bear is the wrath from heaven. The fox steps in between him and the dog, and then it gets reflected right back. Then the next moment with the
But the mercy thing, the mercy feels like that's a dynamic between two parties, between two people, instead of three.
I see what you're saying. I'm trying to see if there's like going through my mind right now, trying to think,
Hmm.
trying to think of the story of Christ and think, um, like what's going on there. Is it kind of a reflection of the same thing? Um, I don't know, or and think on a personal level also. I don't know.
Hmm.
Because if you okay, so if I have wronged you, if I just did something to wrong you, and there was this unforgiveness between us, where you're saying we're kind of thinking, where's the third party there?
Well,
Um,
it would be mercy. It would be mercy if there is no third party and you didn't show judgment. But if another person stepped in my behalf and said, I will take the judgment on behalf of them, that would be a substitution.
yeah, but why would there? It's interesting. This is interesting. You always do this to me, man. So why would there be unforgiveness if there wasn't a third party? Because the third party would be the ideal, right? Would that be the third party?
Why would there be?
Is it, am I making a stretch on this one too?
No,
Like
no, say it again. I'm
the ideal. So if I let's say we were supposed to meet out to get dinner or something, and I just didn't show up, or I showed up half an hour late. And so
mm,
you have this ideal standard of just promptness or something. And
yeah.
so then you judge me by that ideal. Is that ideal the third party in a way? And then you're gonna step in between me and that ideal and be like, all right, it's cool. It's cool. He can be slack and late. I don't know. I feel like I'm making a stretch here. I don't know.
I would struggle to see it that way, but I that it is, you're getting at something interesting.
Like the highest good. So we're gonna give to the poor, and I decide not to. And so that offends you. And then you see me and you're like, because you give, I don't know, you give $20 to poor, and I'm like, screw them. I don't, they're whatever, homeless. And I'm saying I don't want to give to them. And then you're kind of offended at me. You're like, well, I thought he was caring or kind. And so you're holding me to this ideal of generosity that I'm not living up to. And
Mm,
then for us to get back in the right relationship would be for you to forgive me for no reason. Like you have every right to think I'm a prick and a selfish
mm,
bastard, sort of. But then you're just like, but then you would somehow step between me and that ideal and be like, no, maybe he was raised differently and that's why he's stingy or something. I don't know.
mm,
I feel like I am making a stretch, but then I'm also kind of wondering, well, why would we kind of condemn each other or find fault with each other if we didn't have some idea of a greater good in a way? But I
yes.
could be wrong.
Yeah, there's a law. I mean, judgment implies it implies an ideal.
Yeah, because there,
Perhaps the judge is the ideal.
yeah, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. And it really does feel like if you've ever been in that situation of, I'm sure you probably have, of forgiving someone when they don't, not only do they not ask for forgiveness, but they don't even want it, and
Mm,
they could care less, and then to step in between that, it does feel like you're taking a blow to yourself almost. Like that's one things I notice is it. There's been very few times in my life where I've actually taken. It's a weird way to say it, but you actually take the sins of someone else upon you. Does that make
mm,
sense? Like when you take the blame, you take the fall for someone else,
yeah.
and you know they're wrong and they know they're wrong, but you're like, somehow you come up. I'm trying to think. I don't want to like give away examples. So um there was this, yeah, I just don't want to. So
You
one
could
time
say,
this person just blew their lid and probably embarrassed themselves because and I had said something that kind of was the tip of the iceberg, like it, or that's not the right word to say it, was the boiling point basically. There's a lot of underlying stuff. And then I made one comment, which was kind of almost defending someone else and they lost it. And I thought I was just sticking up for this other person or whatever. And so then knowing they would probably be embarrassed how they acted, it was basically, I just thought, well, I pushed them too far, And so that's what, if anybody asked, that's what was in that moment kind of felt a little bit like that. Like, I'm going to take the fall here. Like, I'm the one who pushed him. I pushed him to this point to make him lose it. I was poking at him the whole time. And
So if someone were to ask what happened, you would tell them that it was your fault because you pushed them too far.
yeah,
That
but in a way it kind of was. I mean, it wasn't as that extreme, but in a way it still kind of was, because I mean, I wasn't blameless in the whole thing. So, but it feels, when you actually do something like that, it kind of feels like, yeah, it feels weird. It doesn't feel good. Does it? Because it's one, it's kind of a little bit like we were talked about last time, of almost sacrificing the story a little bit too, because you're at that point, you're taking the fall for someone, and you're doing the Batman thing. You're gonna say, I'm gonna be the bad guy here instead of Harvey Dent, and I'm gonna yeah.
This is interesting. I had a conversation with people who I'm really close to. There's two people that are a couple that I'm really close to, and there was this conflict one time where they had this event, this really bad conflict between them that was really personal and really contentious, and they had never worked it out completely. And then one of them brought it up, and they talked about it in a way that was totally not, it didn't paint the other in a good light. And it was painful. And we had this whole conversation afterwards, Ruthie and I and these two people, about how there's a version of lying that we do, or a version of omission that we do to protect people. So for example, if you and I got in a fight and it was really personal, and then we were going to talk to someone else about it, there's a version of the story that you and I would tell to each other when we talk about it. But there's like a private version of the story, and then there's a public version of the story, which is one that I could talk about maybe how you did me wrong, but in a way that protects you from the kind of the scathing details. And it felt like in this situation with these two people, one of them they didn't tell the private version. They didn't tell like a watered down version. They told the full on, like, I don't know. And it's interesting because it was secrecy. There's like secrecy involved. And it's like it's a precondition for trust.
Yeah.
So does that feel related to what you described?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Can you say more about that a little bit though? The secrecy is a precondition for trust.
Well, let's say if you know someone intimately, you know everything about them that's vulnerable. You know what their vulnerabilities are. And there's part of being able to be, you can only be vulnerable with somebody if you know that they won't expose your weaknesses. Because if you're vulnerable with something and someone else and they just expose your weaknesses, then your trust was violated.
Yeah.
And so it's tempting to say that secrecy is never appropriate, but I'm feeling more and more like secrecy is actually, it's a precondition for all of these other good things. You can't have trust, for example, without secrecy.
That's really interesting. I never thought of that before. There's something really scratchy, by the way. I'm not sure if it's the headphones or something. I don't really know. I don't know if you're hearing it or not. But that's really weird. I never thought of that.
It could be that I'm generating the scratchiness.
Yeah, that's interesting though, that secrecy is a precondition for trust. That's really weird.
It feels related to the idea in the American Constitution that privacy is a fundamental right.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. I guess it is.
Well, you have the right to privacy.
Yeah.
And property. And that's interesting. You hear in conversations about surveillance, for example, where people talk about, oh, our phones are recording us, the government is listening to everything we do, and people will say, well, I have nothing to hide,
Yeah.
as if the perfect transparency, as if everybody should just be totally transparent. But there's it seems like this isn't really well explored, and I don't have a great map of this territory, but that the secrecy that is created by privacy is it's a safety net, and like you have to have this safety net for stability, or for relationships can't be deep perhaps without an element of secrecy, because we have vulnerabilities.
That's really interesting. I'm gonna be chewing on that for a while.
Does it feel that you described how you would you would shield a person from the way that they might be depicted if you told the story totally honestly? Like there was a fabricated version of the story, like a slightly tweaked version of the story where you hid their vulnerabilities.
Yeah. Yeah, it needs to stay that way. It's the thing too. Yeah, that's why you can't talk about it. That's why I was very hesitant to even try to give an example. But it's like I don't know how to pull. I don't know that I've done that very often in my life. I don't know that you get opportunity to do that very often in life either. But it's that's really interesting though. I wonder, man, that's like Greg.
What are you feeling?
You drop these ideas on me, and I try to, and then I gotta weave them into my whole like worldview and see how they. I'm just like, because I'm just thinking of, because you're connecting those two things, and I'm trying. I see how they are connected, but I just don't see it clearly. Does it make sense? Does that make sense? It's
I'm in the same position. Yeah.
Because there's so Stephen the martyr, have you heard that story?
Yes.
It's basically exactly like the Christ story. So you have the two parties. You have the Jews and Stephen, you have Christ and Stephen, and then you have God above, and they both respond and say, forgive him, Lord. They're innocent because they're ignorant. They don't know what they're doing. So it seems somewhat
the Jews and Stephen and the Jews in Christ.
Yeah, well, it's the same story. It's almost
Right.
exactly this. Yeah, it's so. Stephen to me is like he basically embodies Christ in that moment almost perfectly, because he reacts the same way. They're killing him unjustly, so they can scapegoat him basically, and the more I can put under me, the higher I can climb. And he says, forgive them, Lord. They don't know what they're doing. And then, and I wonder, I'm trying to see, because you're saying those two things are connected. And I'm trying to see how, trying to see how that's connected to the whole intimacy and vulnerability thing. Because it's really strange. That's why I'm trying to see it, because it's not, it's almost like he's telling a different story to God. Does that make sense?
I see what you're getting at.
But I don't know. It's like very archaic. You know what I mean? I'm like, I can't quite understand it, but I kind of see what you're saying. It's like he's looking at God and saying, I'm trusting, I'm going to take their sins and put them in the secret place, and almost, God, forgive him. Yeah, it's like he's telling a little bit, like you said, not lying necessarily, but yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to do with it. I'm like, I feel like I'm dancing on the edge of something here. What do you think?
Well, I'm tempted to feel like it's a trivial connection on one hand, but on the other hand, I have the sense that there's something just beyond reach that is substantial.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now, because I'm thinking, why would you connected the other two. And so I'm like, there seems to be a similarity. So I feel like they're connected. But yeah, the right beyond reach is a good way to describe it. It's like, I don't know. And then I know it's going to click in like a week or so. And I'm like, oh, there it is. Yeah, I don't know. Can't get it right yet though.
One similarity is in both cases, there's an ideal, there's an ideal image of the world that doesn't get acted out.
Mhm.
Maybe this is a dead end, but in the case of Stephen doesn't deserve to be martyred. He doesn't deserve to die,
Mhm.
but he dies anyway, knowingly. He knows that it's wrong.
Yeah.
He knows that what's happening to him is wrong. He chooses it. He chooses it anyway.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Sorry. No. I think I might be able to kind of make the connection. So you and Ruthie are listening to your two friends, right?
Uh-huh.
And then they're kind of just flat out telling the story, throwing each other on the bus type thing. I mean, I'm probably exaggerating. Yeah.
Yes.
So to connect it to the Stephen story, you and Ruthie are God in that story. Does that make sense? You're observing, you're up above, listening to the story, kind of judging it in a way, like listening to see who's right and wrong in this conflict that they had. And then you're watching them play out of just throwing stones at each other instead of one of them just taking the stones, and being or throwing the stones at himself, sort of thing. I think that maybe is where the connection is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you're getting at.
Yeah. Not that you and Ruthie were playing God or like wanting to judge them, but they're offering the story to you.
We were in a position to judge which one of them was right and which one was wrong.
Mm-hmm. And they're trying to get you to judge themselves as right and the other one. Yeah.
Yes. And what they could have said is they could have acted sacrificially. They could have sacrificed themselves and said, well, I was really in that situation. I was being harsh, I was being whatever, and it wasn't their fault. They could have sacrificed themselves on behalf of another, but instead of sacrificing themselves, they sacrificed each other. They said they are wrong. Here they are.
Yeah.
Like they played like Adam in the garden. They said Eve is guilty. Eve is guilty.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example.
Instead of saying, don't take them, I am guilty.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, I think it might be. It sounded like when you were moving. I don't know if it might be your headphones. I'm just getting a lot of scratchiness on my end. I don't know.
No, it's probably this microphone is right here.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's a really good example though, because I've been reading through. So I started a new Bible this year, and I was trying to just read straight. I'd never done that before. Just go through, not to hop around, just read the whole thing straight through. But I was watching in the Old Testament, and there's some parts in there where there'll be a prophet or something, and they'll do something to the prophet, and the prophet will cry out to God, remember them, Lord. And they're like, remember what they did to me type thing. And I just, every time I read it, I'm like, that seems wrong. It seems kind of like the Adam thing, like you're talking about. Like, Lord, look at them. Look how they, I don't know if it's wrong, because we always want to elevate the prophets to this example of what we're supposed to follow to, but then Christ didn't do that. He didn't.
Yes. It's related to, how should I put this? There's a story that I haven't seen, but I just know kind of loosely. There's a moment in a story, for example, perhaps tell me if this makes sense to you. There's a bunch of people, and Spartacus has to bear judgment. Spartacus is guilty, and someone says, who is Spartacus? And everybody stands up, they say, I'm Spartacus. And someone says, no, I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. And so everybody's saying, I'm the guilty one. I'm the guilty one.
Yeah.
And because everybody's the guilty one, the real guilty one can't be punished. And so the community is forgiving Spartacus by sacrificing themselves.
Yeah.
It's like
What?
it's there's less bloodshed because there's less punishment, there's more cooperation because people say, take me instead. Like it's impossible for blood to be spilled because everybody is
Yeah,
trying to be
that's
the one who takes the
takes
blow.
the blow. Yeah, that's why I think you're dancing around when I always say I'm a universalist, which I need to
Mm,
stop saying that now, because I was actually listening to that lady Shari, and she was actually quoting from one of George MacDonald's unspoken sermons. But I think what she was getting at is she said it's like it's not universalism, but it's ultimate reconciliation or something, I think is what he called it. And I
mm,
was like, maybe that's a better term. George MacDonald does this things in his writings where it seems like he likes to just reach out into these things we've condemned and just play with the story and see if he can redeem them and pull them back
mm,
into redemption. And I really love that about his stories. But I think what you're getting at is, I think when the church, the body of Christ, actually lives like Christ or lives like Stephen, embodies that same spirit. That's why I kind of believe the gates of hell will be liberated in a way. Because if it, what does Paul say? Oh yeah, this is a worthy, this is a saying worthy of all acceptance. Christ came in the world to save sinners, of whom I'm chief. So like if every single person in the church saw themselves as the greatest sinner, then every single one of them would stand up and say, I'm Spartacus. And then,
mm,
because even if, and I, like, even if you have Hitler there, or whoever we think is like just the worst, if God's going to put judgment on him and you said, you know what, I'm a bigger sinner than he is. It's like,
mm,
then what? Then what do you do with that? Because that's hard to do. But um, if you pull back the view and look at the entire human story and look at Adam as the collective body of all mankind, it's like you kind of see we've all done the same thing in big ways and little ways. And then even when you get into Carl Jung type stuff, you're like, how much did all these little things affect all our different consciousnesses? And then you have one man that gets these other followers, gets so caught up in ideology and delusion, and then just mass murders people. It's like, we're not all innocent in that, because how did that guy get there? Like, how did that actually happen in the human story? Like, that should
mm,
not have happened. And if we would have been, I don't know, living better, that I don't think it would have happened. Because
mm,
I mean, you don't hear about his childhood, really. I mean, maybe you do.
mm,
I never have. But so I don't know what he went through to get him to that place. I don't know.
mm.
And I never met the guy, but but I don't know. I
Yeah.
think if the church, if we really all came to that place of seeing ourselves as the chief sinners, we would be like Mary Magdalene and just be at his feet, constantly pouring ourselves out. Like she's the one that breaks the alabaster flask and pours it on Jesus and wipes his feet with her tears. And he says
Mm,
to her, what does he say? He rebukes this guy starts rebuking Jesus, and he's like, why would you let this whore basically kiss your feet? Why would you let her touch you? And he says, who do you think loves more, the person who's forgiven least or the person who's forgiven much? And he says, he who's forgiven much loves more, basically. So if every person in the church could see just how much they've been forgiven,
mm,
we'd walk in more love, and then there wouldn't be all this damnation or whatever. I don't know. And I think that's why I kind of come to that conclusion in my own head. But I also I'm on the fence about the whole. I lean more to there being probably some sort of repentance after death within the final judgment described in Revelation.
mm,
But I could be totally wrong on that. So that's a whole kind of different topic. But I like
mm.
that. Is that Spartacus story? Is that Greek mythology? Is that what you said? What's that
No,
from?
I think it's pretty modern.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I shouldn't even have
That's,
talked about it because I don't know very much about it.
That's nice. I like it.
I just have an image of it. I think maybe someone showed me a clip. Can I bring you back to a different place we could have gone
Yeah.
when we were talking about the Fox and the Hound? And in a lot of stories, especially these stories where these animated stories where you have anthropomorphized animals that act human, there's an archetype. Maybe it's a bigger archetype. So the fox and the hound, they're forbidden friends.
Hmm.
By nature, they shouldn't be friends, but they are anyway. In the Don Bluth stories, for example, you have well, in The Land Before Time, you have maybe that's not a good example. Let's talk about the American Tale. Did you see this movie?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you have a cat, I think his name is Tiger, and he's friends with Fievel, the mouse.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
And so they're forbidden friends, like the fox and the hound.
How do they become friends again? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Uh-huh.
In The Secret of Nim, you
Mhm.
have Miss Frisbee, who's a mouse, and she is friends with Jeremy the crow.
Okay.
And so you have these,
Yeah.
you have forbidden friends. It's kind of related to the forbidden lovers archetype, like Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
What do you make of this forbidden friends or forbidden lovers pattern? Why do we see this so much?
I don't know. It's interesting. True. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't think of it as Romeo and Juliet before. I guess there is a parallel there with Fox and the Hound. Not that they are lovers in a friendship way,
Yes.
but I wonder if there's something also to the David and Jonathan story in the Bible too, where because they're like best friends and it says their souls are knit together because they love each other so much. But Saul, Jonathan's dad, wants to kill David. And
That is
so
an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. Huh. I wonder what that does to it's not the right way to say it. I was thinking maybe your consciousness, but I like to have to work through that conflict. Yeah, I don't know.
Another one, this is an obscure reference. You remember Lion King 2? Did you ever see Lion King 2?
Yeah.
Unpopular opinion, I think it's as good as Lion King 1.
I watched it because of you, because you said we were talking when we were talking about Peter Pan, you were like, you got to check out Lion King 2. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. Yeah,
totally. You have Simba's daughter, who's royalty, and then you have Kovu, who is he's
a bad boy.
He's exiled.
Yeah.
Right. Here comes another one. You've got in Shrek, you've got Shrek, who's a hideous ogre, and the princess. And they have a romance, but it's not meant to be, he thinks, because they're from two worlds.
That's crazy.
You have Little Mermaid, you have Ariel, she's a mermaid, she wants to be with a human. So all of these have kind of an element of unnaturalness.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure what to say about it though, because it's I mean, I even see what you're getting at where I mentioned, I feel like it's connected to what I mentioned about reaching, like George MacDonald reaching over into this forbidden place to see what he can redeem. And he's trying
forbidden place.
Yeah, I like how you put that you're reconciling two worlds, because it's weird. I'm not sure what to make of it, because Romeo and Juliet, you're like, well, it's two families. So like there's these walls of tradition, and you're kind of, you could almost even look at racism in a type of way. Like we're all connected, we're all human, but then you'd have people like, so you're kind of breaking down these, or trying to break down these walls that don't need to be there and connect these two families. But then when you get into Fox and the Hound, it's like, when you said, it's almost like Mother Nature forbids it. But then I even wonder, why is that? Because there is verses, it's in Isaiah, I know, probably other places, where it talks about the heavenly kingdom, the thing we're all hoping and longing for, the the city of peace, the New Jerusalem, and it says, "The lion shall lay down with the lamb." The wolf.
Yes, totally,
Yeah.
totally.
And so I'm
There,
like that. That's the ideal, I guess.
could it be? There's an element of in some of these stories, animal instinct and predator versus prey type relationship, right? And there's this kind of animalistic instinct, and there's something in the stories where the characters transcend the animal instinct. It's like they become more conscious.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like a higher state of consciousness, perhaps. I hate that. That's such sticky language because it has so much
Yeah.
connotative value.
No,
It
I
gets in the
know.
way.
I know what you mean, though. And now with the internet, all these things, and I mean, a lot of them could be fake, but I think probably some of them aren't. But I see stuff all the time on the internet now of like a bear and a dog being friends or something, and they're just. It's like, how does that happen? Like, I don't know. I don't know if it happens more than we realize, that animals, like you said, transcend that animal instinct and show compassion. It might happen a lot more than we know, because I mean, you have stories of other animals will find a youngling and raise it themselves. Man, this is crazy territory I'm not familiar with. It's weird because I'm thinking about you brought in Mother Nature, and so Mother Nature says this, but I'm like, I know you haven't read this one yet, but it kind of made me, for some reason, it made my mind go to Eve and Lilith, like the book Lilith, and mother, and like in the Adam and Eve story with Eve, because in the Lilith story, traditionally, not in the George MacDonald story per se, but Lilith is Adam's first wife, and then she, to be as, I mean, it's kind of crude anyway. She basically wants to be on top during sex, and he says, no, this isn't right. So I mean, it sounds petty, but if you think of it in like a symbolic sense and just keep following it through, it's actually quite interesting. But so she basically is banished to the wilderness. God sends these angels to call her to repentance and say, like, come back to the garden, and she refuses. Then she supposedly gets turned into some like night demon, that then the story, I think, goes on throughout the years, and she ends up being the one that devours children, eats babies, kind of like, I don't know if she drinks their blood. I'm not really sure exactly. It's all this crazy stuff. And then I just wonder if Eve, Adam's second wife, is kind of, it says in Genesis, she's the mother of all living. Like it's, and I'm sure it means, there's a way that it means just men, but it almost feels like a throwback to Mother Earth in a way too, to me, like the mother of all living. And she's like this proper mother. And then Lilith is kind of the mother that demands blood or something, and it devours her children. So I'm kind of wondering if Lilith is kind of this image of the mother that says, no, kill each other, slay each other, fox and hound, you can't be friends. I don't know. I'm probably stretched, like grabbing at something that might not be relatable at all. I have no idea, because I'm wondering, why would Mother Nature, if the lion should lay down with the lamb, why would Mother Nature necessarily say, you can't be friends, you have to kill each other? I don't.
There's both a great mother and a terrible mother. It's a duality. In the Jungian way of thinking, there's the great mother is the nourishing mother that everything comes out of and owes life to, and then there's the terrible mother, which is all the punishing and vicious aspects of nature.
Okay, can you say more about that? Or
well, it's just like the feminine character is, the character of the feminine has these aspects where femininity is the birthplace of everything. All life continues through females.
Okay. Yeah.
But evolutionarily female, because evolutionarily human beings are kind of a female selective. We have sex selection is done by females. We're not a species where the men are the choosy maters. It's the women who are the choosy maters, biologically. And so some deep in our evolution as a species, you have this image where, in addition to all these positive qualities, there's a judging nature to femininity, because they deny.
I see what you're getting at.
And I'm there's a danger here, because to talk about that, it sounds like that skews our story more male, but I feel the reason that it's appropriate, and this isn't my idea, the reason it's appropriate is because our lineage passes through males. Like, how do I put this? The right way to say it is that evolution selects for males, because the females are they are kind of Mother Nature, in the sense that they are doing the selecting.
Yeah, which is interesting. So if we're drawing back and looking at, I haven't thought of it that way before. Is there a goodness to that in a way? Because if the judging part of Mother Nature is almost saying survival of the fittest, right? Is that what you're kind of
Yes.
getting at? Yeah.
Yes.
She's saying, you male, I choose you because you're the strongest, you're the best. Like you,
But
and you must be the best.
But if you're not the strongest, it's brutal. It's brutal.
But it's interesting, because it's like, if you don't have that calling you to be higher, calling you to be better, then do you just turn into some blob of complacency because the mother's overly comforting? And
this is something that is discussed in Ion, although it's discussed or older places as well. And in fact, I believe that Uber Boyo and Jimmy Boyo talk about this a lot in that series.
I've been listening to that a little bit. I've been trying to get familiar with that. Yeah,
they go into it in detail.
I think I need to re-listen to it too. I think they went over some of it, and I remember hearing a little bit of it. But yeah,
I can't help but I want to not say this, but I have to. In Phantastes,
yeah,
it's chapter 16 or 17. What has happened is Anidos he was in the castle, and this white lady, this sculpture that he was pursuing, he kind of picks her up, and he wasn't supposed to pick her up. He acted foolishly, and she runs away. You shouldn't have touched me. And she runs into this cave, and he follows her into this cave, and there's all these goblins.
Yeah.
And these goblins are ridiculing him for having sung this song that he sang to her, and they're trying to embarrass him and say, you are a fool, and a better man is going to get her. A better, you weren't the best. There's someone better. Selection was brutal. And then so he says, well, if there is a better man, that's better. She can have him. And the goblins that ruins the fun. He kind of banished them with that. And then in that chapter, there's this woman figure, this terrible, not ugly, but like normal looking woman. There's this mother figure who shows up, this woman figure, and she's like the terrible mother. And she kind of proceeds to kind of like, concentrate on his inadequacy.
Yeah, it's really interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, if I remember right, doesn't she try to get him to compromise too, or something at the end?
I don't remember.
Let me see if I can find it. I got to read it now. Let me see. Man, this book is just. Oh man.
Try chapter 17.
Man, they're in Roman numerals. It's gonna take me a minute. I think you're ever as I sang. Yeah, I think you're right. Ever as I sang. So this 17. I saw it once, met my path without a moment's hesitation, glad it's not stared. Yeah, it's a descent. So he's going down there. So okay, let me find this. Okay, let's see. Where's this lady? The little song arose. I felt once more. Fairy palace. Fairy palace. A crash of laughter. More discordant. So these are the goblins. I think he's seeing something else, and this is probably where he's talking about that other part you just mentioned. So he says a crash of laughter, more discordant and deriding than any I had yet heard, invaded my ears. Looking on in the direction of the sound, I saw a little elderly woman, much taller, however, than the goblins I had just left. Seated upon a stone by the side of the path, she rose. As I drew near, I came and wait, sorry, seated beside in the path. She rose as I drew near and came forward to meet me. She was very plain and commonplace in appearance, without being hideously ugly. Looking up in my face with a stupid sneer, she said, "Isn't it a pity you haven't a pretty girl to walk alone with you through this sweet country? How different everything would look, wouldn't it? Strange that one can never have what one would like best. How the roses would bloom and all that, even in the infernal hole. Aren't they wouldn't they Anados, or how do you say it? Anados? I don't know.
I said Anados. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Anados. Wouldn't they, Anados? Her eyes would light up the whole cave, wouldn't they? That depends on who the pretty girl should be, replied I. Not so very much matter that, she answered. Look here. I had turned to go away as I gave my reply, but now I stopped and looked at her, as a rough and unsightly bud might suddenly blossom into the most lovely flower, or rather as a sunbeam bursts through a shapeless cloud and transfigures the earth, so burst a face of resplendent beauty, as it were, through the unsightly visage of the woman, destroying it with light as it dawned through it. A summer sky rose above me, gray with heat. Across a shining, slumberous landscape looked from afar the peaks of snow-capped mountains, and down from a great rock beside me fell a sheet of water, mad with its own delight. Stay with me, she said, lifting up her exquisite face and looking full in mine. I drew back, and again the infernal laugh grated upon my ears. Again the rocks closed in around me, and the ugly woman looked at me with wicked, mocking hazel eyes. You shall have your reward, she said. You shall see your white lady again. That lies not with you, I replied, and turned and left her. She followed me with shriek upon shriek of laughter as I went on my way. And then he says, I may mention here that although there was always light enough to see my path a few yards on every side of me, I never could find out the source of this sad sepulchre illumination. I don't know.
Hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, she I don't know what she transforms almost into the white lady he's looking for. And like there's this moment of, I don't know what that is, but there's like this moment of temptation, like choose me and the world around you will look pretty, but he knows she's not really the one. I don't know what to make of that either. What do you think that is? Like this temptation to settle or something?
Here's a fan theory. You've described people you know who have this really overwhelming reaction to femininity or to feminism, or I've heard stories, like sometimes people who just have had a really bad experience with being rejected by men who have been rejected by women, they form this vision of women that's purely negative.
Yeah.
And in the face of that rejection, there's a temptation to say, women are not the white lady. Women are this terrible mother, this creature that he encounters, and only see that.
Yeah. Huh.
I'm not sure. It could be a wrong idea, but I'm not sure if that's what the story is about. But I think that's at least how I am interpreting
that part right there.
The response. Well, the thing is, Anados dispels the goblins by saying, if there's a better man, he can have her. Basically, I don't deserve her if he does. And that something about that is liberating. But then he also says, she says, like, this woman says, wouldn't it be better if you're in here, if you were just with somebody, like anybody who's a woman? And he says, it depends on who she is. Like, it's not just anybody that I want to be with, it's someone worthy. And yeah. something about it that is liberating.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what to make. How do you parse all of that?
I don't know. For some reason, my mind, this may be kind of strange, but almost like as soon as you started talking for some, and this may be a different direction than you were going with it, but my mind almost started to think of, I, and this is probably a crude example, but pornography or something.
Mm,
Like I could have this rejection from this woman that I really desire, who's my white lady. And
mm,
then there's this temptation of, you can have me, but I'm not the real thing. I don't
mm,
know. That's why, and that's like, I feel like that's a
totally.
leap. I mean,
No,
I
I
feel
don't think
like
it's a leap at all.
it's connected, but I feel like it's not like a leap, I guess, but an extreme example, I guess I should say.
I feel like
Maybe.
it's a, I feel like, no, I feel like you're right on the mark, because there's like when you're rejected and you have the option to say, well, that wasn't what I wanted. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like that wasn't worth attaining. I'll try to just attain something lower.
Yeah. I like how you put that though. I don't know that I saw that way before. Is he's kind of after that. Yeah, because he sings to her, but then he reaches out and when she's unveiled before him, he reaches out and he tries to grab her. This feminine lady he wants, this white lady, this pure Snow White in a way. And
Mm,
and she says, "You shouldn't have
mm,
touched me." And she
mm.
flees from him. And it's like he didn't really he didn't in that moment he didn't treat her properly. He didn't
Yes,
treat her wholly enough. Like she should have
yes.
been, he should have reverenced her more and been more, treated her delicately in a way, and
Mm,
instead of trying to grab her for himself. And so she flees from him, and then it's like, I hadn't seen this before, but then that whole thing is kind of him going down and down because he's walking through a land of rejection. Like you're,
mm.
yeah, and I don't know that I saw that way before until you brought that up. And all the goblins are like mocking him because he just got rejected, even though rightly so, he probably did.
Yeah,
Because yeah, but then he still has to deal with that he got rejected. And so then at the end of that, yeah, he has this choice of, it's a false promise because you have this lady who's truly hideous, and you could see it as pornography, and it
I
but
thought
it
they said.
promises you,
I
it
think you're
promised,
right.
yeah,
Well, I mean, they said she wasn't hideous. She was just commonplace looking.
that's true, yeah,
She wasn't.
until
Yeah,
until like after or something, then she turned into the shriek upon shriek of hideous laughter or something. Yeah,
mm,
yeah.
that
Com-
yeah that was hideous.
I like no, but I like that you brought that up. Like she's commonplace looking. Like she's not the ideal that he's looking for. She's not what he's chasing after, but she doesn't appear. I don't know. I'm making this connection with pornography, and maybe it's an extreme connection, but I feel like
I
it
don't
does the
think
same
so.
thing.
I
It
think it's
it
appropriate.
yeah, it makes us, it promises you that, like, it's not what you truly desire, but it's not hideous. You look at it and you're like, otherwise it wouldn't be a temptation at all. And then it
Mm,
almost starts to look beautiful, and it's giving you this promise, like, wouldn't your world just be so much better if you just choose me? Wouldn't, and it's
mm.
this totally false promise.
Is it,
And
yeah, like,
then,
isn't the fake better than the real thing?
yeah. But it makes me wonder if he would have chosen her, that'd be the end of him. That'd be the end of the story right there. Because he'd be
Mm,
stuck in that cave. I feel like that
mm,
whatever that lady was would have just devoured him. If I'm relating it to pornography in a way, because I feel like it just, you're already in a pit, and then to choose that in that point just kind of keeps pulling you down into
mm.
this further darkness.
Yes, and something I'm realizing as you're describing it is the cave analogy is interesting, because if you're underground, there's always a ceiling. There's always an upper limit,
Yeah.
right? Like there's a barrier that you can't exceed, and so you have to escape from the cave before you're. Is that
Say,
is that
say
is
more
that
about
a
it.
well? She was saying the woman in the cave said, "Settle for less."
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And you had alluded to this downward motion. He's going down into the cave. He's what he's aiming at is no longer high. He's aiming low, like he's going into a low place.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And she's saying, don't aspire for something high. Aspire for something uh, low,
Yeah.
and it's related to limitation. Like he couldn't have attained his
Yeah.
ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that book is fascinating. I love it. So is that where you stopped? Did you stop right after that? Or
I'm a little further than that, but not much.
did you get to let me see what comes after that?
I
Dang.
just got, so what happens right after that is in the next chapter, he's going through the cave and the cave narrows. It gets very tight and restrictive. And
Okay.
he's about to, he sees a light and he knows that it's his way out of the cave.
It's a birth.
And he feels it's a birth.
Yeah.
That you're Jason. Jason, it's a birth.
I didn't realize that till you were describing it. And I was like, man, it is. It's like a contraction, like it before he's getting ready to come out.
Yes.
And
Man, it's deep.
It's weird.
It's deep. And he says, and I mean, it's related to, he's kind of in a womb, but it's a womb of stone. And
Yeah.
it's not the great mother, it's the terrible mother, and there's these goblins. And, okay, I had never realized that. And you know what's interesting is he says that he had, before he was about to go into the light, he said he had these something like nightmares of childhood. It's right before chapter 18, I think. He has like these nightmares of childhood, and then the next chapter has to do with these chaotic childhood memories or something like this.
I think I know what you're talking. And is this when he goes to that house?
I don't know. I'm not there yet. But what is the end of? I think it's 18. What does he say in the end of 18?
Let me
Or
see.
maybe it's the end of 7. I guess you just read 17. Or maybe it's
Yeah.
just
Oh, okay. So
it's the beginning.
yeah, I
of
just
18.
read 17. So the beginning of 18. So did you read 18, chapter 18?
No, I'm halfway through 18.
Oh, okay. My dear Charles. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, more dismal than a dismal day, more dismal than the tomb I had left. Yeah, I think you're almost the end of chapter 18. I have highlighted, and it's like it was like one of my favorite parts of like the whole book. And then I think right after that, let me make sure. I think that's my the next chapter, chapter 19 is probably I think that's my favorite chapter in the entire book. Personally, maybe that's just a personal thing. I think it's and that's a long chapter. And that one's my favorite though. But that one's rich, man. I would love to talk about that one.
Man, there's so
But
much to talk about in this whole
yeah,
thing.
yeah. So so all that being said and all that, I know you probably have to go soon or whatever, but what's your favorite part so far? Do you have a favorite part?
Oh my gosh. Give me 2 seconds here. I think because I actually have some notes on it. Okay, my favorite part is there's a moment where Anidos is in this fairy palace. There's this palace and there's a library, and there's multiple chapters of him just retelling the stories in the books. And so it's like stories within stories. And there's a similar story about a character named Cosmo and this enchanted mirror. And I really like the story of Cosmo and the Enchanted Mirror.
Yeah, that one's great. That one's great. I really want people. So this is the book. If anyone's watching, Phantastes.
Get this book.
Yeah, get it. But in the middle, I should find what chapter it is because literally the thing I love about that too is you don't actually have to read the whole book. Like you could just hop to that because he's sitting in the fairy palace and then it's a story within the story. Like you could read it completely separately. Like I mean, I'm sure it relates to the whole story overall, but you don't necessarily need it to. So I remember, I think I mentioned to that Natalie when I first gave her the book, I was like, you should just read this one chapter and then we can just talk about that. And then we can read the rest. Cause I was like, you don't necessarily, I don't know. It's a great story. It is a long chapter, I feel like, but it is, it's really cool. And I think it is extremely related to the overall story, but it doesn't have like any spoilers or anything. And it could be its own separate thing. Cause it is, which is great. I don't know how he does that, man, in his writings. It's crazy. He's got a gift and an intuition for weaving things together like that. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. Cosmo and the magic mirror. Yeah. Yeah. He's okay. So this totally other topic. Do you need to go soon?
I should, but go on.
Okay. Yeah.
Not
So
urgently.
I've been wondering about this whole thing because in that let's just give spoilers, whatever. I don't care. But then that story with Cosmo, so he draws the circle and everything and does the magic spell.
Mm.
It's interesting to me that George MacDonald knows about all that stuff, like being Christian. He was obviously well read and everything, but I've kind of always wondered, like, I don't understand what the why people do that. Like, I'm actually interested in talking to someone that actually practices magic and ask them why they do this.
You know what you should, you mean the drawing of the circle?
Yeah, because it keeps the bad spirits out. And if we're talking about other consciousnesses or daemons or however you want to say it, you're summoning them, but you're within a circle, so that way you're still safe. But then there's another thing they do that's even more intriguing to me, is they'll summon the spirit or the outside consciousness that if they want to command it to do their bidding, they'll summon it within a triangle. And I don't.
Jonathan Pageau has a very interesting discussion about the pentagram, at least, or the upside down pentagram. Have you heard him talk about this?
Maybe. Could you say more? I don't know.
Well, I'm tempted to. You know what's interesting?
Yeah.
Let me show you my notes here. This is actually
okay.
I'll just pull. Let's see. It looks like I'm disabled from screen sharing, but I'm going to find it. Do you have on your Zoom window on the bottom left, do you have a security
What is it?
icon?
On the bottom left. Oh, security. Yeah. What do I do?
Can you enable screen sharing?
Enable waiting room. Screen share. Yeah. Did that work?
I think it probably will. Let me search here for what I'm looking for.
I don't know how to screen share, but that's pretty cool if you can do that. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that Cosmo chapter too, if you've got any notes or thoughts on it.
I'll have to reprocess it.
Okay. That is
Okay.
oh, nice. Whoa, how are you doing this? This is amazing. You need to teach me how to do this sort of thing.
I'm screen sharing.
I don't know how to do it.
Okay, so these are my notes. I wanted to show you this because I think it's so cool. A friend of mine showed me this. So I have this open all the time, this note editor, and it's called Obsidian. Obsidian is very cool. But this is Phantastes. But what you can do here is you can link your notes to each other. So if I say open local graph, you can see how it's related to other things that you've taken notes on.
Whoa, that's cool.
And so,
well, now you got to relate them all to everything. We got Fox and the Hound. We got all sorts of things going on in this conversation.
Anyway, I thought we were going to, let's see. So Jonathan Pageau has pentagram symbolism. I have pentagram symbolism in here. And so let's see what he says. Well, he talks about how you have a star, and the image of a star is you have these four things that are kind of, they're like the body, like you have that, if you think about a body, they're like limbs.
Yes.
And the limbs are subordinate to the brain, because the head is like, it's like a limb, but it's like, it's the center of action.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. So the pentagram's inverted, right? Inverted?
Yes, but so the regular, the upright pentagram, because they're both the pentagram. There's an upright one, and then there's a inverted one.
Okay.
Where the head points down.
Okay.
And what he says is the upright one represents the idea that unity comes from like subordination to something that's higher. Like the many submit to the one.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
The limbs submit to the brain, and that's unity. And the pentagram, the inverted pentagram, it symbolizes the idea that you can have the limbs are on top, like the many are elevated on top, and unity comes from elevating the many.
Huh.
And
I haven't thought of that before. That's interesting.
Let's see, but this is related to, let's see. He makes a point about how it's related to these.
The Goat King.
The Goat King is described in the pentagram, implies that which is cast out has latent power, which is cast out has power. And things being cast out
I see what you're saying. Okay.
That it's related to he said it's related to kind of like political things going on where there's like minority groups and there's like this tremendous power in what's cast out, like these marginalized groups.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see it. It's definitely got
Yeah. This is the reason why hair and blood and like body fluids are used in occult rituals. He calls it the power of the exception.
Yeah, that's weird. It's interesting thinking about all that, because you're like, how does that work in ritual magic? Like I get it. I can kind of get it conceptually and understand what Pageau is saying. But then when I think about it, I'm like, how did people know this? And how did they put this into practice? Like, how did they? Because this stuff's been around for a long time.
Yes. Yeah, it would be a very interesting. We should do some research and just have a discussion totally about like the symbolism of dark of spells and
yeah, that would be so much fun. I really want to find someone to talk to about it. Yeah, my cousin Chris. So I'm gonna see if I can tie this in here real quick, because I did I tell you about like the whole sonar lunar knowledge thing? I mentioned that. Yeah. So like sonar is conscious thought, lunar is kind of like the intuition or whatever. So to tie this in, my cousin Chris, I actually uploaded a video with him recently, but he was the one when I was starting to draw those pictures of like biblical stuff. I asked him like, I was like, my characters seem to all look the same, and he said, well, try drawing them as silhouettes, because then you're working with shapes more. And he said, and you'll find that certain shapes have different like feelings and emotions. Like Santa Claus is round, he's jolly, like round shapes. Squares are more stoic and everything. Triangles, like Jafar, he said he's mostly made out of triangles. And Aladdin, so triangles are very pointed and they seem sharp and almost dangerous in a way. And so to tie this in with the whole lunar thought thing, like I'm trying to think of, if I'm calling in an outside consciousness, to get intelligences from. You could call it intelligences, you could call it consciousness or whatever. And so I'm protecting myself in the circle, but I kept thinking, this is the only thing I've come up with now, as I'm thinking, why is it in a triangle? And for some reason, I just have this feeling inside of me. It's kind of like that lunar thought of like, if I were to take my thoughts and put them in a triangle, it would feel a lot more threatening. Like if someone did take my mind, I don't know why, like if someone put my mind and my consciousness, my own consciousness, and put it in a circle, I think I'd be like, all right, this is chill, I like this. But if they put it in a triangle, for some reason, I just have this feeling inside of me, like I wouldn't like it. And I'm like, I wonder if it has something to do with that. Like, I just don't know why these like dark magicians or whatever are using these shapes in such a way. Like if they want to command a spirit, it's like, well, summon him into the triangle and then he'll do your bidding. I don't know why. Do you think it has, it's such a weird way to say it. Sorry, it sounds strange, I know. It's just as weird. I don't know why that would, I don't know how any of that works. I don't know why it doesn't really make much sense. Like I said, intellectually or with any sort of, it doesn't make sense up here yet. I don't.
Yeah, we should talk about it more. I don't have a grip on it, but I'm sensing what I feel like you're sensing is that it's rich and there's insight to be gleaned.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this, man. Thank you so much. We need to do more on this George MacDonald thing too. We should go through this.
I'm pumped about it. I would love to. I'll scurry on to the end so we can get started.
Okay. Yeah. Are you going to reread it afterwards? Is that what we're going to do, or no? Because
I'll reread it as we go through it.
Okay. Yeah. Or we could just after you're done, we could just go back and we could look at our notes from each chapter or something and go through and kind of just recap it, so you don't have to read the whole thing. Cool. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks for doing this, Craig.
You got it, man. I'll see you later.
Have a good night. See ya.
You too.